This is Caribbean News Desk. I'm Dennis Chabrol. First, the headlines. Police in Trinidad and Tobago probing hacking to death of elderly German tourists. A flight attendant for a regional airline convicted for money laundering. And St. Lucia's trade union proposes wage freeze. Details coming up.
We are one Caribbean, one people, one nation. Facing the same destiny, though separated we are. As one, let's come together. One market economy. Caribbean is how it should be. Let's support, carry on for Caribbean unity. It takes you. It takes me for Caribbean unity.
St Kitts and Nevis' opposition has been weighing in Canada's decision to abolish visa-free entry of nationals of that twin island federation. This follows concerns about St Kitts and Nevis' economic citizenship program that has allowed Syrians and Iranians to enter Canada, although they possibly would not have been granted visas under normal circumstances. Although St Kitts and Nevis earlier this year announced that any name change must be reflected in the passport's observation and that all new passports must include the place of birth, Canada at the weekend announced that nationals of St Kitts and Nevis must now obtain Canadian visas. Canada says that's because of concerns about the issuance of passports and identity management practices within the Federation's Citizenship by Investment program. According to Canadian authorities, the visa requirement will ensure that Canada will be able to properly determine the true identity of St Kitts and Nevis passport holders and deny entry to those who would otherwise be inadmissible to Canada. Opposition leader Mark Brantley expresses concern about the impact that the Canadian visa system will have on nationals of that country.
But I ended this address by asking rhetorically, was the receipt of US $1 million for a diplomatic passport by an Iranian worth this mighty blow to our nation's economy, to our nation's pride and dignity, and to the proud people of St Kitts and Nevis? My fellow citizens, I ask you to ponder on these things and recognize that the consequences of bad decisions actuated by greed and corruption are felt not just by those who make those decisions, but by you and your families.
Mr. Brantley was Monday expected to formally assure Canada that his administration will seek to resolve concerns about the Citizenship by Investment program should his party win the next general election. The United Nations International Organization for Migration is paying keen attention to the crackdown on illegal migrants in the Bahamas. The Bahamas government says that the Deputy Director General of the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, Laura Thompson, visited the Bahamas for talks with top officials on the nation's controversial new immigration law. Thompson met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, Frederick Mitchell, as a follow-up to a memorandum of understanding signed by the two parties in September during the UN General Assembly, according to a government statement. During the visit, which took place last week, Mitchell and Thompson spoke about an initiative for regional cooperation to combat irregular migration and smuggling among Haiti, the Bahamas, and the Turks and Caicos. The officials also discussed reintegration programs for Haitians deported from the Bahamas. Mitchell shared with Thompson his concerns about misconceptions arising from media coverage of the new immigration law, suggesting that a public education campaign is needed. Under the new law, which took effect on November 1, the Bahamian government will not accept applications for work permits from persons residing illegally in the country, and legal migrants must carry their passports at all times. The legislation has been criticized for allegedly targeting Haitians, a charge the Bahamian government denies. Amnesty International recently said that it was disturbed at the Bahamian authorities' use of language which appears to stigmatize migrants and Bahamians perceived to be migrants, including children, and may stoke discrimination and xenophobia in the country. Tobago's House of Assembly Chief Secretary Orville London says $100,000 has been offered by Crime Stoppers for information in solving the murder of the German couple over the weekend. 71-year-old Birgit Kiel and her 74-year-old husband Hubertus were found chopped to death on Saturday near the mouth of the river at Bacolet Bay, Tobago. Police are yet to ascertain a motive, as the couple's vacation home was untouched and personal valuables were found in them. Our correspondent Andrea Perez has more in this report.
At a high-level meeting called this afternoon on the island, Tobago House of Assembly Chief Secretary Orville London says Crime Stoppers have offered $100,000 to catch the perpetrators who committed this heinous crime. Mr. London is hoping this brutal incident does not affect the relationship between German visitors and Tobago.
We've had a long and I think mutually beneficial relationship with the German people, and we will want that relationship to continue.
Also speaking at the conference was Acting Police Commissioner Stephen Williams, who says solving the murder of the Kyles is of high priority.
So that we can bring a closure to this investigation, a successful closure with the arrest of whoever is responsible for this heinous crime. So I wanted to give that assurance that we continue to focus on this investigation, and we are in fact ensuring that the investigation is comprehensively dealt with, all the available resources.
And speaking during an interview, Deputy Head of Mission at the German Embassy for TNT, Dr. Michael Freudenberg, says it is alarming, as this is not the first tragic incident against Germans in Tobago, and is hoping the perpetrators are brought to justice soon.
I think action is really needed, and something has to be done, because we also receive other calls from Germans living in Tobago who are a bit afraid now of what is going on, and if something at last is really done to solve these issues.
I am Andrea Perez reporting from Port of Spain, Trinidad for Caribbean News Desk.
A Dominican flight attendant was Monday convicted for money laundering. 30-year-old Sharita Cornell Newton, an employee of regional carrier Liat, was fined more than $3,700 or an alternative of 9 months imprisonment. St. Vincent and Grenadines Eyewitness News reports that she was charged with taking criminal property into St. Vincent and Grenadines. Colonel Newton pleaded guilty to both charges when she appeared before Chief Magistrate Rashawn Brown Matthias at the Serious Offences Court in Kingstown. Facts of the case are that on Wednesday, November 21, law enforcement agents conducted a search of Newton's apartment at Beachcombers Hotel and questioned her in relation to monies she had in her possession, suspected to have been derived from criminal conduct. Newton told the police that she had more than the Eastern Caribbean dollar equivalent of $4,400, but when police counted the monies, it amounted to the equivalent of $10,000. She also had in her possession 25 euros. Newton told the police that someone in Antigua had given her the money to take to an individual in St. Vincent, and that she was being paid 1,000 Eastern Caribbean dollars to transport the money. She, however, did not disclose the identities of the person sending the money or the intended recipient. Sources say that Newton had been transporting money in this way since early 2013. She was taken into custody, and the charges were brought against her after a joint investigation by the Financial Intelligence and the Narcotics units. The monies were forfeited to the Confiscated Assets Fund. From St. Lucia, the president of the trade union movement... From St. Lucia, the president of the Trade Union Federation is defending the umbrella body's decision to agree to a wage freeze for the April 2013 to March 2016 triennium. Julian Monroe says the issue is simply one of putting country before self. Details in this report from Alison Kentish.
Government and various public sector trade unions were at loggerheads over a proposed 5% pay cut for the public service to help cure St. Lucia's whopping $76 million deficit. The Trade Union Federation has rejected the pay cut and is instead proposing a wage freeze for the triennium April 2013 to March 2016. President Julian Monroe has described the offer as a huge contribution to national development.
Understanding the current situation in St. Lucia, understanding the fiscal position of the state, we said to them we needed to make a counter proposal And our counter proposal was for a zero increase, what in effect was a wage freeze.
Government has lauded the parties for finding common ground. However, officials are quick to point out that a wage freeze addresses future increases in public expenditure, but does not resolve the immediate situation of the fiscal deficit. Alison Kentish in Castries, St. Lucia for the Caribbean News Desk.
Jamaica's meteorological services urge island residents to remain vigilant and conserve water due to a shortage of rainfall in some regions of the country. Meteorological Service Head Jeffrey Spooner says that southern parishes in particular are expected to continue to receive below normal rainfall and might plunge into drought conditions, and some might remain into early next year when the dry season takes effect. Spooner's call follows an appeal last week from the Minister of Water, Land, Environment and Climate Change, Robert Pickersgill, who pleaded with people to be more sparing in their use of water. He noted that Jamaica received some 121 millimeters or 4.7 inches of rainfall in October, which is approximately 51% of normal precipitation for the month. The capital city, Kingston, and localities such as St Andrews, St Thomas, Clarendon and St Mary are some of the worst affected areas, according to Spooner. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel García Margallo has arrived on his first official visit to Cuba, where he'll discuss bilateral relations and regional and international issues with his hosts. García Margallo arrived on Sunday and is to begin his official agenda on Monday on the first visit to Cuba by a Spanish foreign minister in 4 years. Most of the agenda will focus on reviewing regional and international issues, such as the upcoming Ibero-American Summit in Veracruz, Mexico, current negotiations between the European Union and Cuba to reach a bilateral agreement, Spain's role as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, and the revitalizing of conferences between the EU and the Community of Latin American and the Caribbean states are also to be discussed. During his visit, which concludes on Tuesday, García Margallo is to meet with his Cuban counterpart Bruno Rodriguez, Foreign Trade Minister Rodrigo Malmiraca, and the Deputy Chairman of the Cuban Ministers' Council, Ricardo Cabrizas. Cuban President Raul Castro is expected to receive García Margallo Tuesday afternoon. García Margallo is the first minister from Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy's centre-right government to visit the country.
We are 15 states with a common goal, a unified purpose to face the world. Enriching lives, empowering people, creating a strong economic region. No matter where you're from, no hassle, just freedom. Whether business, school or pleasure, we will benefit together. The CARICOM single market, good for you and me. The CARICOM single market, good for you and me. The CARICOM single market, good for you and me. Oh yeah.
And just before I go, a recap of our headlines. Police in Trinidad and Tobago are probing a hacking to death of an elderly German couple. A flight attendant for a regional airline convicted for money laundering. St. Lucia's trade union proposes wage freeze, and of course the St Kitts and Nevis opposition has been weighing in on Canada's decision to abolish visa-free entry of nationals of that Twin Island Federation. We also told you that the United Nations International Organization for Migration is paying keen attention to the crackdown on illegal migrants in the Bahamas. And of course, the Director General of the IOM, Laura Thompson, recently visited that archipelago to discuss the issue. Also on our program, we told you that there is a possibility of drought in Jamaica, and authorities are urging a water conservation drive there. Thanks for joining us, and do take care. We'll be having another program tomorrow. And until then, you can continue to visit our website at caribnewsdesk.com, our Facebook page at facebook.com/caribnewsdesk, and on Twitter, we are twitter.com/demwaves. Thanks for joining us, and do have a great evening. Bye. Dennis Shibrol.